I'm happy to bring on our next reader, the very first Missouri Poet Laureate, Walter Bargen.
Hello, everyone. Glad to see you here. It's a lovely evening compared to last week, maybe. Still a little hot for me, though. I thought I would begin by reading a few poems from my latest book, My Other Mother's Red Mercedes. And I'm hopefully just going to read enough poems out of this book so you at least understand the title. This is about my mother's descent into dementia and my accompanying her on her trip through nursing homes. Many interesting experiences, and I had a very conflicted relationship with my mother, so you might hear a little bit of that in here. So, My Other Mother's Red Mercedes, there are two parts to this title. There's the Red Mercedes, and there's My Other Mother. So here's the part where the Red Mercedes comes from. This is from the first section of How to Spell Muskogee. She wants to know how to spell Muskogee, Oklahoma. I ask her why, and she repeats the question. I spell the town's name and know that I need to know more. Does a friend live there? No answer. Is she buying something from there? No answer. Is she requesting vacation information? No answer. Is she a fan of Merle Haggart's Okie from Muskogee? Recently, I have called the police to ask for help tracking down the Mercedes that has consumed my mother's life. Each day, she waits and expects to see a red truck parked in her cracked concrete driveway. A month after my call, a detective tells me what their investigation has found out. The people who call my mother are Jamaican, but the money is not sent directly to that sunny, marijuana-besotted, befuddled island, but to an old woman in Muskogee who suffers from dementia like my mother, and according to the detective has no understanding of what she is doing. The money is forwarded to a storefront in Las Vegas. The detective laments that they will never stop the fraud or retrieve the money, but he's encouraged. During the investigation, he is happy to report that he busted 3 people working out of a trailer who were knee-deep in stolen credit cards. My mother never stops being helpful. And so what basically transpired is my mother was scammed for probably at least $12,000. You know, buying license, buying an undercoating, buying everything that was possible, and with the promise that the next day the red Mercedes pickup would be parked in her driveway. She lost friends of 50 years because she would not listen to all of her friends telling her that she was being scammed. I did not realize the severity of the difficulty that she was having until I finally found these moneygrams. And I took her to a neurologist who wrote a letter who made me the executor of her finances. But it didn't stop there. One of the things that happened was my mother started talking about my other mother. And of course, that caught me by surprise, especially because when I was playing with a couple of my cousins when we all 3 of us were quite young, Rosemary and Gerhard, I thought that they were the children of my favorite aunt and uncle, and it turned out that they were adopted war orphans. And then I thought, well, you know, I'm born close enough after World War II that maybe she's trying to tell me something. But she was already too far gone to really give me any information. And ultimately, I decided that, you know, I'm too old to start another life, and kind of left it at that. But it plays in many of the poems in this book. So my mother, one day I walk in, and this is what happens. This poem is called Doppelganger. My mother wants to know if I know that my mother is a chain smoker. I don't know whether to answer yes, no, really. In room 106A, where she's been moved, discharged from the rehabilitation unit for lack of progress, but really because she was near to the end of her insurance, and there was a new patient that could be moved in for 3 more overcharged months. She tells me that my mother showed up at 1 a.m., smoking, and wouldn't stop until the small trash can under the sink was filled with butts. Shrouded in a blue pall, she couldn't see the television mounted on the wall. This is what my mother tells me about my other mother. Repeating the story, I ask for a name, but it has gone up in smoke. Well, it didn't stop there. As far as I know, I'm an only child. And then this surprise happens. This is called Other to Others. She won't say anything more, but I ask again. She stares off into the distance of the dining room tangled with wheelchairs and walkers. I can't see her horizon or the distance and how long it takes to get there. Or maybe there is no getting there. The horizon will rush up at the moment she sees a sun that doesn't set but turns purple and black, deep as the bruises on her forearms, if that's what they are, and not the map of a secret geography displaying 2 ragged coasts that could be islands that almost touch, one bruise nearly forearm long. Pointing at the blotches, she says, "These are your sisters." Does this have anything to do with the last good war? Sisters? Sisters I've never known? Are they still waiting to be rescued on their separate beaches any afternoon? So that's the explanation for My Other Mother's Red Mercedes, the title. It's an entire book of poems like that. I've had really interesting responses to the book. A few people have said they picked it up with only the intention of reading a few poems at the time, and they got so absorbed in it that they sat there and read the book straight through, which I've done a few times with other books of poems, and that told me they must have thought it was pretty good. I've had people tell me how witty it is, and I was very taken aback by that when they would say that to me, and eventually I convinced myself, yes, they're right. It is a very witty book. Anyway, they're available for sale if you'd like to buy one. I forgot to mark my time. Does anybody have any idea? Well, I'll give myself another 5 minutes, okay? Okay. I always bring a stopwatch up here, and I always forget to turn it on. What I was originally going to do is I was going to read you like 4 poems, kind of like 4 poems of the apocalypse. The first one had to do with floods. The second one had to do with tornadoes. The third one had to do with gun violence. And the fourth one had to do with extinction, but all of them in oblique ways, none of them really kind of directly hitting the subject like a hammer on a nail. So this is the poem that I had chosen to fit under the category of extinction. It's called Migratory Bird Count. And it's for Bill and Michael, who were also, I was with them. Every year I go on the Migratory Bird Count. And pretty much it's a sad story. The populations of birds are plummeting. Think about it. Quail, bobwhites, their population in Missouri down 90%. Whippoorwills down 80%, and I could go on like that. But there's always a little moment of humor, and I hope that this poem captures that. It begins with an epigraph from Gerald Manley Hopkins. The bird that I refer to here by name, thrush. And thrush, through the echoing timber, does so rinse and ring the ear. I've gotten up far too early. Early, beyond the last firefly's flickering luminescence, beyond a horned owl falling into the deep well of its voice, leaving me with its echo outlining silence. And the few surviving whippoorwills, at least the solitary singer outside my window, where once there were dozens caffeinating the night with their stories. It has lost its voice, grown tired or despondent, attempting to call forth a mate. There the three of us sit on a gravel road in a bruise of light in an SUV. Not enough coffee, but enough binoculars of varying quality to go around. We could be any set of famous flunky trios. The Musketeers, the Marx Brothers, the Stooges are just the three monkeys, see no, speak no, hear no, and maybe a ghostly fourth, no. We attempt to identify bird songs without seeing anything in particular, other than a smear, a blur, a twittering slur. From the back seat I say, "What was that?" My companions look at me as if I'm suffering from an auditory hallucination. Next time I repeat, "What was that?" I raise an index finger as if pointing their ears at the trilling somewhere in the leaves. The driver with the bird call app on his smartphone shrugs his shoulders. There are too many birds to scroll through, and says, "I don't know." The man in the passenger seat who moments earlier said, "Hearing aids are in my future," says, "I didn't hear anything." And so it goes through the morning, me pointing at nothing in particular, my swashbuckling companions hearing nothing in particular, and all of us seeing even less than anything in particular.